Hello and welcome back to another video. So clearly this is not my normal setup and this is not a type of video I do too often, but I was going to film this video and then get ready for bed. So I was like, why don't I just do them at the same time? So I am going to talk about some of my recent reads while I do my skincare and get ready for bed. So let's see. I have felt like I haven't really reviewed a lot of my books that I've read recently on YouTube much at all, or honestly, kind of anywhere. So, there's a lot of like 5-star books that I've read in the past like month or so that I haven't talked about. So, we're gonna do that. So, the first one I'm gonna talk about is called Life Hacks for a Little Alien, which was just adorable. Gonna do my little makeup wash first. So for like my first skincare step, I'll just teach you about this too. I use the Pharmacy Green Clean. I don't know why it's not focusing because I'm not an influencer. I don't know what I'm doing. The Pharmacy Green Clean Makeup Melt Away Cleansing Balm. I've only recently gotten into cleansing balms, but I feel like they do a lot of good for my little face. Getting off the makeup and like sunscreen and all of that. Okay, so life hacks for a little alien. This is about a person we never really, find out like well, we do find out who is like narrating the story, but it's about a little alien is the only thing that this person's referred to as. And they are just kind of a weirdo. And I mean that in the best way possible. This person does not have a lot of friends and feels kind of just left out of everything as a kid. It's like hard to fit in when you don't have really like crazy weird quirks. So like this poor kid was like really struggling. And she always felt like she was an alien. This is cool too because the book is like very much written as like it's talking to you. Some unknown kind of like force is telling you the story and it's in the second person. So I think that's pretty cool. I read This Thing Between Us recently that had the same kind of situation and I really enjoyed that. So yeah, it's not super common I feel like in books, but yet I've had it twice in the past like 2 months. So that one really like follows this kid who feels like an outsider and then is like up late one night and sees this like infomercial sort of like not an infomercial, this like History Channel sort of program talking about this thing called the Voynich manuscript. It might be the Voynich manuscript. I'm really not sure, but it's a real thing. I didn't know that actually when I read it. I looked it up. And it's basically like an indecipherable code. And so our little alien convinces herself that this is her people like calling her back. And so she goes on this whole like lifelong adventure trying to find this thing. And, she's mostly doing it by herself. She has like one friend. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just like a really cute story. It is definitely in the vein of like Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine. And also there was one other book that I think it was mentioned on the back of it, Remarkably Bright Creatures. And I loved both of those. So it's definitely in a similar kind of sense where it's just like, it's quirky and sweet and like just a feel-good book. And also kind of similar to Nothing to See Here by Kevin Wilson, which is one of my all-time favorite books. So definitely one to check out if you like those things. So the next book that I've read recently that I just could not get enough of is Grace of the Empire State. I feel like I've talked about this only because I did like a book haul and it was definitely in there, but I did end up finishing it and I loved it so much. So this is about a woman named Grace and she is a dancer in New York City right around the Great Depression, and her brother works on building the Empire State Building. And her father's passed away, so she and her brother are like the only ones kind of providing for the family. They have a younger sibling who is just bedridden, like kind of ill, can't really, and so their mother has to stay home and take care of her. And so the show that Grace is in ends up closing, going under this dance hall. And so she is in a tough situation because now this whole family of four only has one income. And so then her brother gets injured at work, and so he is in a cast and can't work on the building. And in addition to affecting like him and his family's income, these workers have like they're in teams of four. So the other three men in his like team can't work either. And because it's the Great Depression, there's just people lining up for days trying to get these jobs. So yeah, it's pretty important that he doesn't like lose his job. And so Grace is out of a job and she says, well, I can go in your place. They are twins, but I mean, they're boy girl twins, so you know they can't be identical, but apparently they look really really similar. And you know, with some like Mulan-esque training, she can really like emulate him. So she goes to work doing all this. She also has some like circus training, and so she's not like super terrified of the heights, and all of that is not like it's much easier for her than it would be for someone like me. And so the story kind of just follows, you know, her trying to make this work and not be found out. And I really loved it. There is like a ton of stuff about grief, which, you know, I can't stop talking about. In case anyone's interested, that was me using this CeraVe hydrating facial cleanser. This isn't what I use at home, but it's what fits in my bag. And I'm just kind of mix it up with my cleansers a lot of the time. Now I'm gonna use the Paula's Choice 2% BHA liquid exfoliant. I do this one about 3 times a week because you just don't need to that much and it can be harsh on your skin. So you know, yeah, with Grace of the Empire State, I really loved this character. I loved some of the quotes in there about grief. And again, I know this is like kind of specific to me and my like life at this, you know, juncture, but yeah, I loved this. I loved the characters, and I thought that they were all really well fleshed out, even like the minor characters. So if you are into historical fiction, this is definitely a good one. And I really hadn't read a lot of books set around this time period. And I found that like when I was done reading it, like that's all I wanted to read was like books set during like the Great Depression. I don't know why, but that, you know, is a good sign for this type of story. And this book in particular, it was a debut and I was just so happy to have gotten to read it. So the next one is, hold on. This is the CosRX Advanced Snail Mucin Power Essence. Yes, snail mucin sounds disgusting, and it kind of is if I think about it too much, but it's really good for your skin. This is like a Korean skincare thing that I need to apparently buy more of. So the next one is also historical fiction, and it is called The Map to Paradise by Susan Meissner. And, you know, I can't get enough of this woman. Her books are incredible. She really gets into some historical fiction that is not really widely known. I've talked about her a lot, but she has a really great one that's called The Nature of Fragile Things, that is about the great like earthquake in San Francisco in like 1908, I think. And then one that is set during the like Spanish flu in 1918 in Philadelphia, which is like where it hit really, really hard. And that one was of course extra fun because that's where I live. So it was like I knew these like landmarks and everything. And then what else? She wrote one, oh my gosh, what is it called? Only the Beautiful. And I honestly can't even remember exactly when it was set, but it was about like a very topical thing about women with like flaws, I guess, like a woman that has synesthesia. Well, she's a little kid, and how like they wanted her to be sterilized because of this weird like freak thing that she could do. So yeah, super interesting. And so this was her newest book, and it's about like the McCarthy trials and like the Red Scare in the 50s. So there's a woman who is like an up and coming like Hollywood starlet, and she was dating her co-star, and he's got a lot more fame than she does, and he was accused of like ties to people who were like at a communist meeting or something, and he refuses to like sell them out basically and like say who was at this meeting, whatever. But due to all of that, she is also accused of being a communist, and so she is like holed up in this little house that he gets for her. And so that's the main plot of the story. And then she's also got this like maid that comes, and she's got her own story, and the neighbors next door, there's a whole bunch of stuff with them. This is like definitely a woman focused book, which I love, especially for historical fiction, because history tends to focus on men a lot more than women. The next step that I'm going to do is this Noto face and neck serum. This is a new product for me, so I don't necessarily know how much I like it yet. I do not know how to show products on a video like this. But this is like an oil. Sometimes it makes my face feel a little bit greasy, so I don't use it too much, but why not? It smells really good. It smells like grapefruit. So yeah, that one was super good, and it's coming out pretty soon. I think at the end of the month. And I'll always recommend her books because I think that everything is so well written and intriguing, and just like I feel like I learned so much from the parts of history that she chooses to write her books around. Okay, the next book that I read recently that I loved was The Dutch House by Ann Patchett. So I actually purchased this book in Nashville at Ann Patchett's bookstore, Parnassus Books. So, I mean, that was pretty cool. I'd actually never read a book by her before, but I knew this was like a really well-loved bookstore, and I was in Nashville for a while, so I was like, all right, let's give it a shot. And it was a really nice store. I loved it. The employees were so kind and like warm, which, sometimes it's hard to like go into a bookstore and I just feel like I'm annoying people when I ask for help or whatever. That's maybe a me problem, but nevertheless, I just thought it was a really great store. And, because she owns it, obviously, she signs all of the books that she sells of her own copies. And so I was like, well, this seems kind of like, what else am I going to do? I got to get one. So I picked The Dutch House, which I think is one of her more recent ones. And this is set to begin with the story in the 50s, pretty soon after World War II ended. And so it's about these two kids at the time. Danny is the narrator of this story, and his older sister Maeve are like the two characters that this book centers around. And so their father got very rich after the war and bought their mother this like big beautiful house, and their mom ended up like abandoning the family. So it was just them and the dad, who was like fine but didn't really like talk to them a ton. He wasn't like a super attentive, involved father. And so when the kids are, I think they're, just like Maeve is like an early teenager, maybe 15, and Danny I think is like about 10 to 12, somewhere in there. And this woman comes to visit, and they end up getting married, and she has two younger daughters, and her name's Andrea, and it is just like not great. So she like ends up sneakily kicking like Maeve out of her bedroom, and just very, very quietly like edging these kids out, which really just is exacerbated when their father dies, and they basically just have this evil stepmother now. And so it is a lot more than just what I'm saying. It's a very complex story with complex characters. This is definitely a character-driven one, but these characters are just, I became like in love with them. I did not want the story to end. And so, yeah, it just follows them through their lives, because they basically went from being very wealthy and having quite a lot of comforts in life to having absolutely nothing because Andrea is a crazy bitch. So Ugh, I loved this. And I definitely want to read more from Ann Patchett. So if you have like a particular book that she's written that you're like very partial to, I would love to know about it because I don't really know where to go from here, but that one was so good. So now I am going to do my CeraVe Vitamin C. This is just a really good like brightening kind of product. I've been using this one a while, and it does usually like make me feel like brighter. I think you might be supposed to use this in the morning, but I don't care. I'm more of a like nighttime routine person. In the morning, I pretty much wash my face, moisturize, and put on sunscreen, and that's kind of where it ends. So that's fine. I'm doing fine. My skin is fine. So next, let's talk about Brooklyn. This was a book that I just loved. So if you are not in my book club over on Fable, you should definitely join it. But this was the March pick, and I could not put this down. I ended up listening to the audiobook on the recommendation of someone over there. I can't remember who exactly, but it's narrated by Saoirse Ronan, and she does an incredible job. So this is about a woman who's Irish. Her name is Eilish. That's her name. Her name's Eilish, and she is, you know, not from a super wealthy family in Ireland, and she's taking care of her mother, and she has an older sister, Rose, and basically she gets the opportunity to come and work in the United States, which is something that her sister kind of like nudges her into because she's like, you have to do something more with your life. I'll stay here and take care of mom. Like, you have to. But she did it in like a sneaky way so that Eilish wouldn't really know what was going on until it was already done. So Eilish comes to Brooklyn, and we're just kind of seeing how she is getting by. And then she meets this guy, Tony, and his whole family. He's Italian. And honestly, it's just one of those kind of like character built stories that has a really like kind of slow moving plot, but like I just again loved the way this story played out. I could not stop reading. Like, I just wanted to keep going, and I'm so excited because there is a sequel to it, Long Island. And you might remember me mentioning in a previous video that I had read a few pages of Long Island in a bookstore and was like, yes, yes. So I went on Pango Books and bought it. And then I was informed that it was a sequel. So I was like, okay, I guess I need to buy Brooklyn now. All that to say is that I am so excited that now, like, I actually do have a sequel to read. And I know it takes place like several years in the future. I think about like 20, but I am really excited to read it. I actually just got the audiobook from my library because I think it's not the same narrator, but I'm still like wanting to try it like that. The only thing that I was like not my favorite was the ending. It just felt like kind of abrupt, and I didn't like necessarily love that, but I'm again knowing that there's a sequel and we're going to find out more about these people's lives. I really liked that. Okay, now I'm doing the Peach and Lily Matcha Pudding Antioxidant Cream. This is another like Korean skincare, and I just love it because it just makes my face feel so like hydrated but not greasy. And I mean, I don't have like super oily skin, but it veers more to that side than like to dry. So I don't know. That's important to me to have like a moisturizer that just feels like hydrating but doesn't like leave this like gunk on my face. So I don't know if I have any more books to talk about. Those were like definitely favorites. I did DNF a book. I don't know if like it's a hard DNF or if it's something I'll come back to, but it was one of my most anticipated books of the like first half of the year, so I'm kind of bummed. But it's called Cat's People by I think Tanya Guerrero is her name. And there's nothing like particularly wrong with it. It's just kind of boring. Nothing's really happening, and like it's got a cat in it, so I should be loving it. but nothing's really happening, and I feel like a lot of the characters are such like there's no nuance or complexity to them. They're very like, I don't know. This feels like a book that could have been written by like a creative writing student. um, okay, so this next product is the retinol that I use, and it is A313. I really have no clue like anything about it, but it's from France, and everyone at work talks about this. They buy it in France when they're over there, so I just went with it. And I really like it. I mean, I don't think I have like too many wrinkles yet, but I have noticed that like my like right here and under my eyes is like just a little bit tighter. So that's nice. So, yeah, that book just like wasn't doing it for me. And you know, life's too short. I have other stuff to read. And again, like I don't know if that's a forever thing, or if I will eventually come back to it, but I was bored and I couldn't like I don't know. I kept finding myself picking up my phone. So that's never a good sign when you're like reading and your phone is just way more entertaining. I like to be like totally sucked into a book. So, yeah, that was not the move for me, but hopefully I'm sure other people will love it. It has really good reviews so far. It's not out yet, but a lot of people seem to be loving it. So, hopefully it's just a me thing because I would love to see like a debut author succeed. And today, after I DNF'd that, I started a book called Julie Chan is Dead. I think that's what it's called. Oh, well, you'll know because I'll put a picture of it here. But this one is really good so far. It sort of reminds me of Yellowface. And so it's about this woman named Julie who has just not a lot going on for her. She works in a grocery store. She's very, very like anti-hero, like morally gray. um, and she has like a long lost twin sister. Basically, when they were children, their parents died when I think they were like under 5. And they didn't really have anyone to take them in. So one of them ended up being adopted by this wealthy white family. And the other went to live with their aunt, who was just horrible and like really resentful to her. And so Chloe, her twin sister, became this super successful influencer. She has like millions and millions of followers and she makes all kinds of money. And the only time that she really has reached out to Julie is when she was like in a video on her YouTube channel that was like, surprising my long lost twin and buying her a house. And so that was really it. And then they went back to not talking to each other after that. So one day, Julie just gets a call from Chloe's. She doesn't even know that it's Chloe's number because they don't have each other's numbers. And she just sees New York area code. And she's like, that's the only person I know in New York. So she answers it. And all she hears is like Juju, which is like her nickname. Juju, mistake, like she says a couple like other like very cryptic words. And so Julie is like, what the hell? And so, you know, at first she doesn't like freak out, but she's concerned. And days go by and she isn't answering her phone and she isn't answering texts and her social media seems to be stalled. She's not posting anything. And so finally she just decides that she's going to go to New York and like see what's going on. So she finds her address because her name is on the paperwork for this house that that Chloe bought her. And so she goes to New York City and keeps getting mistaken for her sister. So she ends up like getting into her building that's of course got like all kinds of security. She gets in there relatively easily and she ends up finding her sister dead. And it is not easily, obviously apparent what happened. It appears like it could be a drug overdose. But anyways, she ends up calling the police as one does. And they think that she is Chloe. And she decides, well, I might not correct them because you know, Chloe and I started in the same spot, and by luck of the draw, she got adopted by this incredibly wealthy family that took such good care of her, and she has just this perfect dream life, and Julie's life has just been shit. So she's like, I'm just gonna become her. And so far, that's all like on the synopsis, but that is also how far I am into the book. But oh my gosh, I just love this so far. It's so funny the way that, her internal monologue is so like clever. And something that I really really like is a lot of times when there is like a situation like this, just a crazy outlandish situation in a book, I get very like just caught up in like the small bits of like, okay, but like really how would this work, what's going on. And the fact that like in her internal monologue these things are called out to herself just really adds to like the funniness for me. I'm like, okay, we can have plot holes if you also don't understand how this is happening. Like, acknowledge that, like, yeah, I don't know how all these people don't know that I'm not her, that kind of thing. So, yeah, I am really enjoying that. So, yeah, that is what I have been reading lately. There have been, other books in there too, but nothing that I have loved and wanted to talk about, just those ones. So let me know, what is your last 5-star read? I want to know. If you have like a cool skincare routine, let me know about that too. I am always like changing up my skincare and adding things to it and taking things away from it. And like I just ordered a whole new thing in the Sephora sale, and so yeah, this is just how we're doing it tonight. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Like I said, a little different, just kind of chatting, but I hope you enjoyed watching it. I definitely enjoyed making it. So if you haven't subscribed, I would love it if you would. If you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps me out with the algorithm and all that. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye!